All right, example number 2, we're solving for unknown sides. So find the length of the unknown for both triangles in the given below. So for here is example A here, and it is asking for this x value here down here. And this is something new because normally in grade 9 you'd be given 2 sides and you'd use Pythagorean theorem to find the third side. But now you have to use something called trigonometry or the tan ratio to relate the angles with the ratio of the sides. So here we have something that's 5 astronomical units. I don't know if you remember from grade 9 science, but this is the distance the Earth is from the sun. So that's like 19 million miles or something like that. So that's 5 astronomical units. And this value is x. So if this is 27 degrees, we know that we can use the calculator to figure out what the ratio is. How many times the opposite, how many times smaller is this than that? Okay, so the first thing you should do all the time when starting trigonometry questions is labeling the triangles, just like we did in the first example. So across from the 90-degree symbol here is your hypotenuse, and across from the focus angle is the opposite, and this is adjacent. Now, we need to look for a formula that has both the opposite and adjacent, and we only know right now of one formula, which is tangent. And we know from our first video that the formula is tan of theta equals opposite over adjacent. And theta represents the focus angle that we have, and the focus angle that we have is 27 degrees. So I'm going to write 27 in here. And opposite is 5, and adjacent is x here. Okay? And so we have a formula here where we can just solve for x. We have to use our calculator to figure out what tan of 27 is. So every 27-degree triangle will tell us how many times smaller the opposite is than of the adjacent. So what percentage of the opposite is of the adjacent. So let's type in tan 27, making sure our calculator is in degree mode. And it is going to be 0.509 equals to 5 over x. So what this means, again, you have to be able to translate this in your head. This actually means something. It means that the opposite is 50.9% of the adjacent. So this is about half of the adjacent. And we need to solve this equation to find out what x is going to be. So right now, x is on the bottom, and we can't solve for x when it's on the denominator. So we have to do the opposite of dividing by x. So the opposite of dividing by x is multiplying both sides by x. So if I multiply both sides by x here, I do the one side, I do the other side, this divides out, and we're going to be left with x times 0.509 equals to 5. And now, what I'm going to do is to isolate for x, we have to do the opposite of multiplying by 0.509. So the opposite of multiplying 0.509 is dividing 0.509 . And what we have here is going to be the answer. Now, you got to make sure you keep every single decimal on here to get the most accurate answer possible. So I've kept that number on my calculator, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 5 divided by the answer. Oopsies. So I'm going to do 5 divided by tan 27 is 9.813. Okay? And we can now round it if we need to. X is about 9.8. The question doesn't ask to round, so we can round it to whatever we want. So this is 9.8 astronomical units. Okay. Now, again, it's very important to identify when you've rounded, because this 1 or this 3 is actually a lot of kilometers, right? 1 astronomical unit is like about 19 million kilometers. So even eliminating 1 decimal place or 100th or 1,000th decimal place is quite a lot of kilometers. Okay. Okay, let's do part B. Again, whenever you're starting a trigonometry question, triangles, you gotta label it. So across from the 90-degree symbol is going to be your hypotenuse. Across from your focus angle is going to be my opposite. And this one's going to be my adjacent here, the last one. And you highlight what they want, which is the opposite, and what they gave you. They gave us the adjacent because there's a number here. So again, we need a formula that involves both opposite and adjacent, and that is going to be the one formula we know so far, which is tangent. So I'm going to write out the formula entirely, which is opposite over adjacent. Okay, this is tan of theta, which is 65, and opposite is x, adjacent is 10, and now we can isolate for x. What's the opposite of dividing by 10? The opposite of dividing by 10 is multiplying by 10, so 10 times tan 65. And now you can just put it all in your calculator all at once, but I'm going to slow it down again because there's actually meaning to what this math is doing. So I'm going to write 2.144 because I just did tan 65 first. And apparently, for every 65-degree triangle, the calculator is telling me this opposite should be 2.144 times bigger than the adjacent. Okay? So we're not a machine. You have to be able to understand what this is actually calculating. So if the opposite is 2.144 times bigger than the adjacent, this is why we're multiplying 10 times 2.144. That's why the proportion is set up that way. So we're going to multiply that by 10, and I don't need to use a calculator, just move the decimal over. So 21.44 ... astronomical units is the final answer. Okay. And I'm not going to round, you don't have to round, it doesn't say to round, so I'm just going to leave it like that because I don't know who might be using this. NASA might be using this calculation to figure out when the next comet is coming. So they might need to know every single little kilometer to figure out where that comet's going. Okay, so there are certain cases where you will have to keep every single decimal place and report it to the people you're working with. Okay, so that finishes off example number 2, where you're solving for sides. Click on the next video for example number 3.